I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Sangye chodang soge sonam la, chanchu patu dane. Lagi shoshe ki be sonam ki, lola penche sangye lupa. Sangye chodang soge sonam la, chanchu patu dane. Lagi shoshe ki be sonam ki, lola penche sangye lupa. So, welcome everyone, and again, thank you for joining today. And again, normally I like to start with generating a motivation, spending a little time to generate the motivations. So first we try to take few moments to watch our breath mindfully so we can quiet our mind. Then we can try to generate good intention by thinking, may us coming here together, the good intentions and giving our precious time, listening to the talk, reflecting on that, contemplating on that. Engage in discussions, sharing. May all of these become cause and conditions to be able to encouragement to study the Dharma, inspirations to reflect, contemplate on the meaning of the teachings, the Dharma. And through reflecting, contemplations, may we be able to generate and develop loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta mind, patient mind, content mind, and wisdom realize the ultimate truth. Having cultivated all those inner positive qualities, may we be able to attain our highest potential, the fully awakened state. So we can be more help and benefit to each and every sentient beings. And even now, when we are on the path or trying to enter the path, May we be as much help and benefit to others as much as possible to the body, speech, and mind. At least may we never intentionally hurt and harm others. Okay, so so again, welcome and thank you for joining. And today's topic, the importance of study and reflection, contemplations. Mm, because even in the past, I'm sure even before that, but one of the things that that I'm aware, even around 8 centuries, just little after Buddhism came into the Tibet, not long ago that, there were some teachers, meditators, masters at that time who propagated or who said that, study is not important. Reflection is not important. What is important is the meditation, the contemplations. To achieve enlightenment, what you need is meditations. And if you study, if you think too much, it is obstacle to enlightenment. So therefore, you should have less thoughts, more thinking, more thoughts. And so therefore, studying leads you to have more thoughts. Reflecting leads you to have more thoughts. Therefore, you shouldn't be doing that, but you just meditate and to achieve enlightenment. That was, one Chinese master at that time called, Jana Hashangs. So that was his view, and then it is said, because Buddhism was quite still new to Tibet at that time, around 7 centuries, one of the great Nalanda masters, Nalanda was one of the greatest Buddhist university. According to some of the scholars, they think that is one of the first international university in the world, because they had students coming from, China, Indonesia, many other places, even at that time, even though it's a Buddhist university, but they also study many other things, non-Buddhist, as well as medicine, all different subjects as well. So anyway, one of the greatest master at that time from there, Shantarakshita, he was invited by the king at that time, and he brought the teachings, Buddhism, to there. And then he said, in the futures, by the time he came, he was quite already old, he was already in 70s, over 70s, and so he said, in the futures, if there is any kind of, doubt about the Dharma, the teachings, because it's quite new and hasn't been established very strongly. So if there comes some kind of confusions, some kind of doubt, then you can invite, Kamalashila. He is one of my that teacher's main disciples, again, great Nalanda master. And so, after some times, this Chinese master, meditator, he he said that, and then there was some conflict and confusions and some doubt. And so to clarify that, then they invited the Kamalashila, and Kamalashila came to Tibet, and then he wrote, 3 stages of meditation, 1, 2, 3, in Tibet. And so, and through his writing and through his debate with that other master, it is said that he defeated the other masters. So he proved that why studies and reflections is necessary for the meditation, for the contemplations, and so, and then in his writings on the stages of meditations, he talked about 3 kind of wisdoms, that one cultivate gradually, stage by stage. So, the wisdom of hearing or studying, the wisdom of reflections, and wisdom of meditation or contemplations. And first, you hear, you study. Through hearing the teachings and studying the teaching, you generate some wisdom, understanding, and some wisdom. But then you can't, what you have studied, what you have heard, what you have learned, you give enough time to reflect on that, reflect on the meaning of that, what you have heard, what you have learned. And by reflecting again and again, by using your own reasoning, logics, your own wisdom. So whether what you learn, whether what you have heard can withstand the reasoning logics or experiments, whether that can withstand, whether that is true or not. So you use a lot of thinking, a lot of reflecting. And by doing that, your understanding of the subject become more refined. You understand more deeply, not just from hearing from someone else, but now what you have heard or what you have read, what you have studied, now you have given enough time yourself to reflect on that enough. So your understanding of that become much more refined, much more profound, more deeper. And that wisdom that comes through that is the wisdom of reflections, and that when you have the wisdom through reflections, then that gives you a kind of unshakable certainty about the subject matters. You have done enough experiment in soul, contemplate. You have done enough exam analysis to. So it's not just because someone says, no matter how that person seems very enlightened, but because you yourself has kind of analyzed it. And so even though we might be very certainty about that subject matter, but then, when we think about it, we know and we are aware of that, but when we don't think about it, it's not part of ourselves, it's not there. For example, let's think about impermanent, okay? How all condition, phenomena are ever-changing, impermanent. When we really think about it, we are aware of that. We think, oh, the weather is always changing, day is always changing, our bodies are changing, our feeling, emotions are changing, things around us are kind of getting older, decaying, all of that, we see that. But in normal, every day, we don't think that, it doesn't come. When we think it, we know that, but normally, in generally, that doesn't come naturally, that, oh, everything is changing moment by moment. And so the contemplation, meditation is repeating. That's something you have already, through reflections, through thinking and analyzing and examine through reflection, there's something you have already ascertained about it, sure about it, about that, but then you keep on doing that, repeating the meditation, contemplation again and again, until that understanding become natural, spontaneous, effortless. So then, without putting effort to think this is impermanent, you are aware of impermanent just by everything that you see, you are aware there's impermanent, ever-changing. Everything you hear, all the sound, you are aware they are impermanent, ever-changing, moment by moment. Everything you smell, everything you taste, everything you touch, all these conditioned phenomena, you are aware, all of them, nothing is, all these conditioned phenomena are nothing is permanent, they are ever-changing momentarily. And you are aware of that all the time, all the time. And that comes through the meditation, contemplations, by repeating that again and again. It's just like, our habits. Many of our habits, of course, there are a lot of bad habits, that we have learned, as well as some good habits. So for example, we are trying to learn a good habits. At the very beginning, it doesn't come naturally, And so because you want to develop some good habits, and so then you learn to do that. Sometimes you forget, sometimes you remember, but you try to be mindful and aware, and you keep on repeating that habit. Slowly, then you don't forget. You can remember naturally. You don't have to put effort. Slowly, that way, that habits become just natural, effortless, routine, easy. That is the same. That is how you do that. You come to that point because you keep on repeating doing that. It's the same thing. You keep on repeating that. So even physically, your body started to move naturally. Do you get it? Because your body is now so used to that. Your body know now, what they have to do. So it becomes very naturally. The body, the brain understand that. And through that, your body started to move and do that things naturally, effortlessly. Why? Because you keep on repeating that until it reaches that point. And same with our mind, our practice. So that is what meditation, contemplations does. Sometimes we might feel a little bit boring, because you are repeating the same exercise, same meditation again and again. Even when we come to spiritual dharma, we still have very strong materialistic, state of mind. So, so we always want something exciting, something new, not only with the external things, but even with the spiritual, even with our practice, even with our spiritual things, even, we always, I want something exciting. This one I've done so many times. This one I've heard so many times. Or this one I've studied so many times. It's boring, It doesn't feel like exciting. So I want something new, I want to hear something new. I want to learn something new. I want to study something new. I want to practice something new, so there is that kind of, and so after some time we get bored, doing the same practice. And then we wonder, why should I do same thing again and again? Why should I do something again and again? Well, the reason why we repeat that same, either it's boring or not boring, you have to do that until you reach a point where you don't require effort, where it becomes effortless, natural, spontaneous. That is what the meditation is about, At the moment, if I contemplate on someone's pain, suffering, maybe I might feel a little compassion. But if I don't put effort to meditate, then I don't feel that compassion naturally all the time. But through meditation, repeating that same exercise, same meditation again and again, you reach a point where whether you think or not, that compassion comes just naturally all the time. And that is where we want to reach point. That is the point where we want to reach. And so that is, so in order to have that, to have the wisdom that arise from the contemplation of meditations, then we need to have, before that we need to contemplate. And before we can contemplate better, then we need to study by hearing. And so those are how all of them are so important equally. And so study is so important, not only in our worldly life. I mean, in our worldly life, we know how important the education plays, to clear a lot of the ignorance, misunderstanding. The more we learn, the more we are aware, the more we can, the less we will be misled. The more we study, the more we know, the less we will be misled by misinformations or from different, all kind of things. And that is same in the Dharma. Sometimes even when people are interested in the spiritual path, sometimes they can be misguided, misled by wrong teachers. And we often see that time to time in every religions, and not only in religions, also non-religions, also in different organizations. Sometimes people can be misguided, misled. And it is easy to misguide when the follower, they have not studied enough. So then they believe whatever the teacher says. They cannot make right judgment to see what the teacher says is right or wrong, because they don't have the enough information for themselves, because they have not studied itself. So then it becomes, wherever teacher leads, if they say white is black, they think it's a black. If the teacher says black is white, they think it's a black. So it can be easily misled. But when you have studied enough, even the teacher cannot mislead and misguide, because well, the teacher says that, but what about that? I saw in that teachings. In those teachings, it doesn't say that. What about that? The other teachers also mentioned that. It seems to be contradict that. So you started to, cautions. So you cannot be easily misled, misguided. Okay, so that is why studying, learning is so important from that perspective as well. In relation to that, in the sutras, there is a collections of the Buddha's saying, of especially in relation to the studies. In that Buddha said, even someone is born very talent or very bright mind. Even someone is born as a bright mind, but if he or she doesn't study, or if she doesn't hear what is non-virtuous, what is virtuous, then he or she will not know what is virtuous, what is not virtuous. you know. And just as persons, you know, who has the with the light can see the all the form in the darkness. In the same way, someone who have hear and someone who have studied, then they will be able to do. Someone who have studied, then they will be able to distinguish what is virtues, what is not virtues. And you are able to distinguish what is virtues, what is not virtues by studying it. It comes through study, learning, hearing. That is why it's such important, you know. And then he says, you know, through studies, then we understand all the things. That is where understanding comes through the learning, hearing, learning, you know. Through the studies, you know, then we can overcome all the non-virtuous actions. And by overcoming non-virtuous actions, then we protect ourselves from the lower rebirth. You know, through the studies, you know, so through the practice of that virtues or moral discipline, then we can protect ourselves from getting trouble in this life and in futures. And through the studies, then, you know, we are able to abandon the distractions. And having abandoned the distractions, then we can achieve the material concentrations. And through the studies, then, you know, we can overcome the ignorance. And by having overcome the ignorance, then we can achieve the nirvana. And so that is where in the Buddha's, in that he mentioned about the importance of the study, the learnings, you know. Then in the Maitreya's own writings, again, you know, the ornament of the sutras, he says, and at the very beginning, you try to study, learn, hear, and by whatever you hear, whatever you learn, whatever you study, then you try to analyze thoroughly, and through having analyzed very thoroughly, then, you know, having familiarized with that, analyzing very thoroughly, then one will be able to actualize the exalted wisdom, understanding the reality. So again, in that Maitreya's that's writing, he explained first, you need to have the study, hearing or learning. Once you have studied, learned, then you need to reflect, analyze thoroughly, again and again. And so whatever you have analyzed, whatever you have reflected, and through that, whatever certainty you have got, gained, you try to repeat that by familiarizing with that. That is what meditation or contemplation does, familiarize with that. Through that kind of familiarizations, then you can generate the exalted wisdom that relies the ultimate truth. And by having actualized that, then you can overcome all the afflictive emotions and the result of all the afflictive emotion, all the pain, all the suffering, all the problems, and thereby we can achieve. So again, you know, you see in the Buddha's own sutras, you see the importance of that. Then even in the Maitreya's writing, you see the importance of that. And not only importance, how you need, in order to have that wisdom, exalted wisdom, you need to have familiarity with that practice, meditation, contemplation. That is what it does. And in order to that, you need to have thoroughly analyzing, reflecting. In order to truly analyze, reflecting, then you need to study and learn. So again, that. And Lama Tsongkhapa, you know, also clearly mentioned in his own writing, you know, he said at the very beginning, engage into a very extensive studies. In the middle, by having studied extensively, then you try to, in the middle, try to have understanding that all those teachings, all these commentaries by the Buddha, all the teaching by the Buddhas and all the commentary by those great Indian masters and all other masters, seeing all of them as instructions. Each of them as instructions to transform our mind, to transform our heart, And once you have understood all those teachings, the sutras and commentaries as instructions to transform our mind, then you put into the practice day and night. Then you put into the practice day and night. And then whatever virtues, whatever virtues you create through all of that, then you dedicate for all sentient beings and dedicate for the Dharma to flourish. So that is in one of the Lama Tsongkhapa's, right? So in that, again, first, we need to do extensive studies. Once we do extensive studies, then we need to put in the practice. Very purpose of studying is to put in the practice. It's not just to gain some knowledge, informations, okay? We're not trying to be Google, okay? You can type and all the informations are there, okay? Someone asks you, you have everything to say, or you have all the information about the Dharma, Someone asks you, you can say all of them. But it's not just to collect information, it's to transform our mind, it's to transform our heart. The meaning of studying is that. So, we cannot become like a robot where there's no feeling, no transformations. And so that is where in the Lambrim Chemo, the Lama Tsongkhapa first explained the importance of the studies. And then at the end, he make kind of summarize that. The purpose of studying is to practice. The purpose of studying. So first you go very details that why we need to study, the important of studies. Then he said, the purpose of that studies is to put into practice. Therefore, try to practice whatever according to your ability, according to your own ability, because we all have different abilities. So according to your ability, according to your understanding, according to your knowledge, according to your understanding, try to put as much as effort to apply and put into the practice. That was so reflecting and contemplation is the practice. When we talk about the practice, is reflecting, contemplating, or the meditations. That is what the practice is. I don't remember which great. I think it might have been Shakyamuni, one of the great masters. Even though I'm not 100% sure, I could be wrong, but it seems like it was Shakyamuni. There is a saying, without the knowledge through studies, through the studies. Trying to meditate is like trying to climb a rock, someone who has no finger, you know. It's not possible. Of course, now in modern, with all this technology, it is possible, you know, but, you know, but we are talking about, of course, this was a master from long time ago, you know, and so when you don't have technology, when you are trying to climb a rock climber, you know, you need to have finger to put in the all right space to be able to climb, you know. And so he said that. So without studying, without learning, without studying, trying to meditate is like that. You know? So again, what he's making, the point he's making is, if you want to meditate correctly, properly, deeply, profoundly, if you want to meditate, you want to contemplate profoundly, deeply, then you need to study at the very beginning. You need to study at the very beginning, you know. Also, as I mentioned before, Kamalashila in his writing, he also has written very clearly the stages or the sequences of three wisdom, cultivating the wisdom through hearing or study, and then after that, then on the basis of that, cultivating the wisdom through reflections, and on the basis of the wisdom through reflection, then cultivating the wisdom through meditation or contemplations. Another great masters, you know, Kadamba master, Domtemba, the main disciple of Adisha, he also says, you know, the importance of gathering, study, reflection, contemplation all together. You know, we cannot ignore one of them. We have to take all in together. You know, and he said in his, you know, in one of his teachings, writings, you know, text, he said, you know, when I study, I bring the reflection and contemplations. When I contemplate, I bring studies and contemplations. When I reflect, when I contemplate, I bring studies and reflections. So what he's saying, in whatever you are doing, whether you are studying, whether you are reflecting, whether you are contemplating, try to integrate all of them together. Try to bring all together. We cannot kind of ignore one of those parts. All three parts are important in our practice. The importance of all of those, each of those factors, each of those qualities, extremely important in our practice, for the success of our practice, for the success of our Dharma practice. So yeah. And in relation to that also, His Holiness Dalai Lama also says, you know, the study, reflection, and contemplations, you know, early ones is the cause of the next ones, following ones. And that means the wisdom that comes through the study is the cause of the wisdom through the reflections. And the wisdom through the reflection is the cause of the wisdom that comes through meditations or contemplations. So again, it shows importance of each of them and how we need to. And so His Holiness says, you know, in order to meditate, in order to contemplate, then, you know, the study and reflections extremely important and must. must. Because as I mentioned, even though not only in the long time in the Tibet, still even in our modern time, there are some practitioners who think we don't need to study so much, who still thinks study is not so important. We don't need to study so much. We just need to meditate. You just need to meditate. You just need to contemplate and meditate. You don't need to study so much. You don't need to waste your time, energy to study. Just meditate. Because there is still some view, that kind of view still. And so, but again, if you go to not only some of the greatest master in our time, like His Holiness and many others, but if you go further, Lama Tsongkhapa, Sakya Panditas, all of them. And if you go even further, then all the great Nalanda masters. And then if you go further, even the Buddha's own writing, teachings, sutras, it clearly mentions how important the studies is in order to have a better meditations, better contemplations, more profound contemplations. And the more profound you have meditation, then of course the better result you have, more profound realizations and more quicker realization you have. And so again, this is important. But again, just as Lama Tsongkhapa said, as much as study is important, equally is important to put what we study into the practice. If we don't put into the practice what we study, then again, it doesn't become so as beneficial as it can be, because the very reasons the Buddha gave all these teachings, the very reason the Buddha gave all those different teachings is to transform the sentient being's mind, to discipline and train their own mind. Those are a method or all the Buddha's teachings are the technique or method to how to transform our own mind, how to discipline our own mind, how to train our own mind. So that is what Buddha gave for that purpose. All the great Indian master commentaries are for that purpose. Lama Tsongkhapa's writings are that purpose. All the great teachers' writings. And so whatever we study, all their writings, is to transform our mind. And to transform our mind, to train our mind, to discipline our mind, we have to practice. Just collecting information does not transform our mind. Just by collecting information by itself does not transform our mind, does not discipline our mind, doesn't train our mind. To do that, we have to put into practice through reflection, contemplation, meditations. And so, as His Holiness always says, even if we don't practice, even Buddha was to present be here, there's nothing he can do about it. We think if we meet the Buddha directly, something's going to change us. We will be enlightened. It's not going to be that unless we practice ourselves. Unless we practice ourselves. Yeah. It is like like the saying, there is a saying, I guess maybe it's an English saying, you can take the horse to the river or water, but you can't force it to drink, So if it doesn't, you can only take it, and if it doesn't drink, then it cannot quench the thirst if it has thirst, the same thing. Buddha can only show us the path, how to do that, how to transform our mind, how to discipline our mind. But at the end, we have to put the effort ourselves, practice. And in one of the sutras, Buddha said, I can show you the path, but whether you can be on the path and achieve liberation, not it depends on you. I can only show you how to do it. I can only show you the path, how to do that. And it's all up to you, whether we put into whether we put that into the practice or not, So yeah, that is the point. So we cannot ignore either of them, all three aspects of the practice: study, reflection, contemplations. The importance of that, all of equal importance of that to generate the realization within our mind, to transform our mind, to progress on our path, for all of that, the importance of that. Again, sometimes there are certain misperception as well. One misperception that to meditate, you don't need study, okay? There's one that. Then there's some other misperceptions who says, you need to study, but when you meditate, then you stop thinking, You have to study, but when you meditate, then you should stop thinking. Again, that view has been refuted by Lama Tsongkhapa and many other great masters as well. Again, by relying on, again, such as earlier writings of the Kamala Shilas and all other Indian masters and the sutras sources, and also Maitreya's writing. I just quoted from the Ornamental Sutra. It just clearly mentions, what it mentions is what you have studied, you contemplate on, you reflect on that. And whatever you have reflected, then you contemplate and meditate on that. It's not like you are studying something else and then you are contemplating something else. And so in that cases, I think Lama Tsongkhapa in his Lamrim Chemo, he give an example. If you do that, of course, it goes against all the earlier Indian masters and sutras statements and point of view, but also he said, if you are training your horse to ride, you are training your horse, let's say you are going to compete in one area for tomorrow, So you train the horse so the horse can know the road and everything. But when you actually get in competing, when it really comes, if you try to run in another places, it doesn't serve the purpose, You train here, and then the horse is familiar with that road and everything, and then you check to someone who is not familiar, so the horse doesn't know what to do, And similarly to that, the 7 Dalai Lamas, there is a similar statement where he says, he give different examples. There is some, ceremony of Naga ceremonies in order to kind of clear some of the obstacles from the spirit harms, So when you do that ceremony, you have certain ceremony kind of made of like a person's, and you throw that in that directions, and so he mentions, is if the spirit is in the south side, you throw that on the north side, so it doesn't become effective, so and similarly, so that is just an example, different example, but what you're saying is you have to contemplate on the same thing that you meditate, you have reflected, and same thing that you have meditated. Studies, So that is the importance of. So in Lamrim Chenmo, it is, so now we can talk a little bit about, I think studies is easier, to understand, I think, what it means studying. In Tibetan, is Töba, is kind of hearing, hearing. And so through studies, whether you are hearing from someone or whether you are reading someone's writings, or whether you are, nowadays, YouTube, Google, whatever information there put by someone else there, you study, learn from whatever you learn, So you get a wisdom, you generate a wisdom, understanding and wisdom by depending on others' informations. Okay, by depending on others' informations, isn't it? So whatever understanding, whatever wisdom we have developed, it depends on others' information that is provided there for us to study. The next, so that is from the study. So now you rely on others' informations. Now you examine those information now yourself, whether they are true or not. Whether they are true or not, whether they are accurate or not. And that is the reflections. Now you reflect on those information that has been provided, that you have studied. Now you reflect by using your own reasoning logics, by using some of the authentic and reliable quotations from the sutras and commentaries, So by using all those different, and using your own examples, at the end, using your own experience, direct experience, at the end, if it goes against your own direct experience, then, no matter how well it is presented, that means it's not correct, accurate. If it goes against your own direct experience. So, so you use that kind of, reflecting. So reflecting is you are analyzing, analyzing, investigation, examining, by using all different tools that you might have to investigate, whether you are using that with the external tools or whether you are using internal tools, whatever tool you use to analyze, examine, and investigate. Through doing that, now you have a more understanding, deeper understanding, and wisdom that come from your side, now not from outside, others' information, but now that understanding, that wisdom is coming from your side, from your own analyze, from your own investigation, from your own examinations. And when you do that, then, then it becomes very, much more reliable and unshakable. Your certainty in that subject become very, very, very strong, very strong. So that is in Lamrim Chenmo, that is what he say, the very that you have learned, the very subject that you have studied, learned, then you reflect on that with the reasoning and logics and quotation and example, and so forth. And through that, then you try to have the understanding from your own side, the understanding, wisdom coming from your own side, from within your side. And then that is what the meaning of reflection means, okay? What is the reflections is that, hearing or studying, and then reflections. But again, as I said before, for example, when we think about, emptiness, dependent arisings, or even impermanent that I give example before, when we meditate, when we contemplate, by using that kind of analysis, examinations, reflectings, we feel, yeah, it is true. Nothing exists inherently. Nothing exists independently. And we come to, it is not just because Buddha said in his sutra, not because the great masters commentary says, not because our teacher said it, but we also think ourselves. And by thinking, we come to see, definitely is not inherent existence, definitely is not independent existence. We come to that kind of understanding, isn't it? So we have certain level of understanding through reflections. But then in our everyday experiences, anything that appear to me, it appear as inherently existent, and I believe and grasp inherent existence. Isn't it? Is that your cases, or that is my cases? I guess, I don't know, unless you have different, So therefore, even though I'm so certain when I use that kind of reasoning, logic, and reflecting, when I'm reflecting, and that way, even though I'm certain that nothing exists inherently and independently, but my everyday experience, there's grasping of inherent existence with all the objects all the time. The understanding of non-inherent existence, non-independent existence, that does not come all the time. That awareness, that understanding does not manifest all the time. And so therefore we are overwhelmed by those appearance and grasping all the time. So the meditations is to repeat that kind of meditations, contemplations, why is not inherently existing? Why is not by so many different reasoning and logic and all different things, why it is, so it's repeating that same exercise, same meditations again and again, until then, slowly, that awareness comes more and more frequent. That awareness comes and arises more and more frequent. And then slowly, that awareness comes all the time, spontaneously, naturally, effortlessly. When that awareness comes, then, when there is appearance of truly existence, because of that awareness, you don't believe that. Even though there's appearance, you don't believe the appearance. You don't apprehend and grasp as it appears. So therefore, that appearance cannot deceive you. That appearance does not deceive you, cannot deceive you. And that appearance cannot mislead, misguide, and deceive you. But to do that, we need that awareness all the time. All the time. Because at the moment, when we don't have that awareness, then we believe the appearance. And immediately there's a grasping, clinging, believing the appearance. And that is where it kind of misled us, and that is where it misguide us, and that is where we are misguide, misled, and believe that's the truth. And on the basis of that, then attachment, anger, and all other negative emotions arises. And through those different negative emotions, then we suffer ourselves, and we also create suffering for others. And that's how we suffer, and how we create conditions and for suffering for others, or where we become the source of suffering for others on the basis of that, And in order to have that kind of awareness all the time, that is where the meditations, contemplation meditations comes. So that is why we need that. That's why I need all of them gradually, And so here I wanted to again kind of read from Lama Tsongkhapa's Lamrim Chemo, where he says, the more you have studied, the more study you have, the more wisdom you have from the study. And the more wisdom you have through the study, you are able to think more. You are able to think more. You are able to think more broader. You are able to reflect or think more and more broader, more extensively. The more you are able to reflect or think broadly, more extensively, the more wisdom you develop from extensive reflections. And the more you have wisdom through reflections, the more you are able to contemplate or meditate. And the more you are able to meditate and contemplate, then you have much more tools to cultivate the positive qualities and to negate the negative qualities. You have much more tools and means of contemplating and meditating. And so therefore, Lama Tsongkhapa says, in order to meditate or contemplate, the study and the reflections is necessary, and that is the meaning of all the Buddha's teachings and the commentaries. Again, very clearly, and again, with our own experience, that is what it is, the more you study, the more you reflect, the more people are more open-minded. Your mind is more open-minded. The less you study, the less knowledge you have, the more narrow-minded you become. Because you think, this is the only thing. This is the reality, when it is not. And that is even in the worldly world, and definitely in our practice as well. For example, even with meditations, there are so many different meditations, different form of meditations. And even with each of those different meditations, whether you are meditating on, to develop single-pointed concentrations, or whether you are trying to meditate, contemplate, meditate on different subjects such as impermanence, emptiness, bodhisattvas, loving kindness, compassion, whatever different meditation we do, within each of those meditations, there are so many different techniques, different meditation. It's not just one technique, one meditations, So when you study, you get to know all those different techniques, those different meditations. And so therefore, the more tools, then you have more tools. One technique doesn't work so well, you use the other technique. And then you begin to say, oh, that is more effective for me. That's more powerful to me, because there are so many different techniques and meditations, even concerning one meditations, because certain technique are effective to certain individual and more than other individuals. Just like with our physical, certain exercises are more effective to certain individuals. Not same exercise is effective to everyone, because we have different bodies. So we have to develop according to our body. And same way, meditation is like that, And if we don't study, then you get one technique led by the teachers, and then that is all you have. Whether you are able to make any progress or not, that is all. You just try to, push yourself, Do you get what I mean? Sometimes we have certain practice meditation where we are stuck there. We cannot make any progress. It's like hitting your head to the wall, And then after some time, we get frustrated. We get frustrated because we are trying to put so much effort, trying to meditate so much, and trying to put so much effort, and we have put so much, and still we struggle there. We cannot make any progress and still feel like nothing has changed. Well, sometimes we just have to use different techniques, different meditations. And if you use different technique, different meditations, that might work for you. And to be able to have, all those different access and tools to all different kind of the different meditation, different techniques, and how to kind of, do that, then study become important. Study become important. Study become, the more you study, the more you know about different techniques, more tools. And even, even with one particular technique, even you are making a progress and having some effect, on top of that, so even when you are not, hitting the wall, you not hitting the wall, you are able to make little progress. You start to see little changes. You start to see a little bit of transformation through your practice meditation, But you might be using one particular technique, particular meditation, but if you add some other tools, some other meditation, the progress might be much more faster. The progress might be much more faster. So again, that, for example, whether we are talking about emptiness or whether we are talking about, impermanence, by using one particular reasons, logics, we come to certain understanding. But if you use two reasons, it becomes more stronger. If you use 3 reasons, 4 reasons, it becomes more stronger. Just like, in our science, in our things, maybe let's say, there is some things, evidence, proof that this particular medicine or treatment works, so you gain a trust, okay, because there's evidence, proof that shows that that particular treatment or medicines help to that particular issue, or sickness, you already have some trust to take when you have that problem to take. But then if you see more and more evidence and more other evidence, more other data and more others proof that comes, then you have, your trust become more stronger and stronger. Do you get it? Instead, if there is one evidence, there's some trust. If there is two more evidence, the trust become more stronger. Similarly, same way, when we meditate, when we use those different reasoning and logic, more we have access to that, the more stronger our practice, more intense our practice. And thereby we are able to make more quicker progress. And so again, that's why, again, the importance of studying, for better success of our meditations. For the better success of our meditations, the more study, the more knowledge we have, the more information we have with the different tools, different techniques, then the more you will make more success in your meditations. So in terms of meditations, so we talk about the studies, we talk about the reflections, what the reflections is. We talk about the contemplation or meditations, a little bit about it. In Tibetan, the word for meditation or contemplation, gom, gom. And that have meaning of, familiarity. So it has same meaning as familiarity, something you are so familiar, And so that means, what it means is, again, as I mentioned before, we repeat the same meditation, same exercise, same again and again and again. And so we become so familiar with that, that it doesn't require any effort after some time. When you are not familiar with something, then it requires a lot of effort, more effort, a lot of effort and more. Once you are familiar with something that, once you are familiar with that, once you get familiar with that, whether it is a physical or whether it is mental, then it comes more naturally and less effort. And so that is what meditation has that meaning of familiarity. That's why I was saying that we repeat the same meditation or same technique or same exercise again and again until we reach a point where it becomes so natural, spontaneous, effortless. And whatever topic that we are meditating, that comes, that awareness, that realization, that understanding, the wisdom arises all the time. Of course, when we talk about meditation, there are so many different types of meditations, but generally we can kind of summarize into two, placement meditations or single-pointed meditations, whatever you call, single-pointed meditation or placement meditations, or one of that, and then other ones, analytical meditations, analytical meditations. So kind of two of them, and of course within the placement or single pointed meditation, then of course there are many different techniques as well, whether you use the image, such as Buddha's image or any image in front of you, or you visualize yourself as deity and use that as the image, as the object of that, and trying to keep your awareness on that without any others thoughts, without any others, especially laxity and excitements, or whether you use the breath as the objects, or whether you use the mind itself, relative nature of the mind or ultimate nature of the mind itself. So there are many different. And then in terms of analytical meditation, of course, there are so many different, the analytical meditation on, from Guru devotions, precious human rebirth, impermanence, the nature of the samsaras, loving kindness, compassions, bodhicitta, wisdom, emptiness, all of them, karma, and all of them are analytical meditations, But again, among them, mainly there is in the materials, ornament of the clear realizations. In the chapter 4, then there is some discussions about the meditations, and mainly two types of meditation it describes. One is meditations. You are trying to cultivate your mind into that mind. For when we talk about meditating on faith, meditating on loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, is that you are trying to develop your mind into the faith. You are trying to develop your mind and transform into compassion, into the loving kindness, into the bodhicitta. Okay, that is one. That is one kind of meditation that you are trying, through the meditations, you are trying to transform your own mind into that whatever you are meditating on. Whether it's faith, whether it's love, compassion, bodhicitta. In that is one. Then there is another meditations that is that you are not trying to transform into that itself, but you are trying to meditate by apprehending the object of apprehension, such as impermanent and emptiness. So in that case, you are not trying to transform your mind into impermanent. You are not trying to transform your mind into the emptiness itself, like as it was like love and compassion, but you try to think, what is the impermanent and the nature of impermanence, what is emptiness and what is the nature of impermanence, so it's a slightly different type of meditations. So even so mostly those two kind of meditations, So I think maybe that is more or less today, I guess. Any questions, comments, sharing? So I have left few minutes for if anyone has any questions.
If anyone has any questions, they can either raise their hand or unmute.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
If someone is just coming now into the Dharma, they're really just experiencing everything online. There are so many teachings. There are so many teachings by so many different people. It could be overwhelming. So if someone's very new to the Dharma, where do they begin to study so that they don't, end up, one teacher was saying, we end up like a dog with a lump of meat, just eating, not tasting. So where would they begin?
Well, I think definitely they would need some guidance.
Yeah.
From some of the friends, some of friends, Sangha member they can trust, or at least they have some, so to guide them, where they can start from where they are, instead of, because they by themselves they don't know which teaching is suitable for them or which is not suitable for them. And if they happen to go to something which not that level or unsuitable, they could have a lot of misunderstanding because they don't have the foundations. And some of teachings, without foundations, it can be misunderstood. And then, then that might be, instead of encouragement, it can be discouraging as well. Instead of inspiring them, it can be not inspiring as well there. And they might think, oh, this is not for me, because that particular teaching practice is not suitable for them because they don't have the basic foundation. So definitely, I think some guidance and help from others can be helpful to direct them, which kind of teachings which more suitable for them as a beginners. And and then, even for more advanced, even for those who have been in Dharma for a while, I think it's good to listen and to reflect and digest, because if you don't digest, there's too much information and your mind get confused, then all the teachings started to mix up in your mind, and then you can get even more confused sometimes. But if you really take time to digest, then there's less danger of being confused in that way, because you have digested enough that it sink inside and digest it. So again, that is one of the things I think I also heard from some students as well, where they were just, rushing after all those different teachings, and then they didn't have time to digest, they're just listening and hearing and that, and then after some time, everything can get mixed up, Did I hear from that teaching? Did I hear from that teaching? Or was it that practice, or was this practice? And everything's kind of get mixed up and confused to some degree. So yeah. So that is all I can share in relation to that questions. Of course, if any other ones, and if anyone has something to share, most welcome. It will be nice, because sometimes you might have your own experience, and to share with others can be also beneficial, helpful as well. Any other questions? Well, no questions. That is not bad also.
Can I
So,
ask one
yes,
more small question?
yes, please.
At the end, when you were talking about Maitreya's teaching, meditation to develop your mind to become something, and then the other meditation is to
in Zindangi Yulducheva, by for example, of course, I'm my example might not be the best, I'm contemplating on this computer, okay? And I'm not trying to transform my mind into the computer, okay? Unlike like the compassions, when I'm meditating on compassion and taking that object of my meditations, I'm trying to transform my mind into that mind, compassionate mind. And so the other meditation like that, like computer, so like impermanent and emptiness, because my mind is already impermanent. I don't have to transform into impermanent. It's already empty, and it doesn't have to be transformed into emptiness. Of course, I want to develop in the wisdom realizing emptiness, wisdom realizing the impermanent, but the object of meditation is impermanent, emptiness. Okay. So do you see the difference? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we'll do the dedications. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state.
I'm sorry, I lost track of I couldn't find the pointer.
No, no problem.
Is it sharing?
It is, but it's refuge and bodhicitta. Yeah.
Oh no, okay. It's the long life prayers. I can't get it to come up on the monitor.
It's okay, then maybe today we can just do. Then we try to
Fix it.
dedicate for the bodhicitta mind to arise, those who have not arise and those who have already arise, not to diminish, but increase more and more. So we also dedicate all our virtues and merit for the long life of His Holiness Dalai Lama, Khyabje Lama Sopa Rinpoche, and all their great projects, noble projects, and wishes be fulfilled. And may we be always under their guidance and care until we achieve enlightenment. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Good night. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we'll see you tomorrow morning for
Thank you.
daily practice.
Okay. Thank you. Good night. Thank you.
So much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.